dressmaker, Elaine O'Neill. Elaine Ellen Gill was born on the 8th of August 1930 at Carrington Street, Revesby, New South Wales. Her grandfather, Oscar Peacock, was a stonemason from England. Her parents struggled financially and moved to Port Kembla after losing their home. Elaine's father set up a butcher's shop, but was a kind soul, allowing too much credit to customers during the tough times. They lived near a steelworks and the women hated the black cinders settling on their freshly washed sheets. Elaine's sister Edna was born in 1940. Elaine was always very good at sewing at school and made a beautiful embroidered nightie that one of the teachers purchased for her own honeymoon. At 13, Elaine made her first dress for a paying customer, her grandma Peacock. Her mum Betsy made her wonderful costumes as a child, one made of taffeta and lottery tickets with glitter. As she grew older, her aunt, a professional sewer, made her outfits for her. Elaine's first sewing machine was a Singer treadle. Her first real job was as a milliner. After her father came home from the war, she remodelled his army hat into a more practical street hat. She sewed for the rest of her life. She also made fiancé Reg a very authentic hat for the Shakespearean play, A Comedy of Errors, only to have the director decide it was too good for Reg and passed it on to the principal. Elaine was most put out, but got her into the theatre sewing industry. Elaine had many jobs early on. In the school holidays she worked in Coles at the haberdashery counter. Then she worked for a photographer, a Russian fellow, followed by another, Sidney Riley, who paid better at £1 20 per week and took wedding pictures. In those days the stockings were rayon, which wrinkled until the end of the war when nylon ones appeared. They were so expensive that a kiosk in the Strand Arcade repaired them invisibly for £1 an inch. Elaine then went to work for a milliner in Market Street for a couple of years. At 17 she met Reg at a theatre and film league afternoon. He was so taken with the little blonde he cast her in a play to make sure she came back. Elaine joined the theatre group, the Australian Films League, and went on outings and picnics with Reg, and they became engaged just before her 18th birthday. Reg was 24. Reg even turned down a prestigious job offer in the Mercury Theatre to get engaged, considering it a job suited better to a bachelor. Elaine went to work at Carhill's restaurant as a hostess to greet people. She often met famous people there, and one morning a lovely wrestler named Chief Little Wolf came in for breakfast with his family. Reg and Elaine were married in 1949. Elaine at 19 made her own dress, the bridesmaid's, the mother of the bride's dress, and along with that all the hats. They took a steam train to Wallachia for their honeymoon. There was a coal strike on and the power went off all the time. Housing was hard to get due to the priority of returned soldiers needing homes. They took a room and a front veranda in King's Cross, which was very bohemian at that time, but when Elaine fell pregnant they decided it was no place to bring up a child. Elaine came to the Derwent Valley from Sydney in 1951 with husband Reg and baby Madeline to live at North Crescent, New Norfolk, in the housing estate built for workers of the Australian newsprint mills, now known as Norske Skog. Reg was in need of work due to power strike and saw an advertisement in the paper for work with a house where a newspaper mill was opening in New Norfolk. They had borrowed money from both parents for the transport costs and headed off with a bedroom suite, cot, pram, bicycle and a children's wardrobe stuffed with books. Reg was sent 3 months before Elaine and Madeline. A ute was sent from the mill to pick them up in the middle of a cold Derwent Valley winter. Elaine and 10-month-old Madeline were in the front and Reg had to make do with the back tray along the winding road to New Norfolk in the bitter winter cold. The house at North Crescent was a fee prefabricated 3-bedroom home with a lounge room, kitchen, small bathroom and a toilet out on the back porch. It had a sink with a cupboard under it and an iron stove. The mill had dropped a load of wet hardwood in the yard for fuel. There was a copper to boil up hot water. The floorboards had to be polished. It had no fence or street light, and it was right on the edge of the bush. Elaine spent her first cold winter boiling up the clothes, putting them into cold water with a stick, and wringing them out with red raw hands. It became a bit of a shock for 21-year-old Elaine coming from the glitzy world of King's Cross. At age 24, her second child Helen was born, and then her world was shattered by the diagnosis of ovarian cancer. Elaine was given only 6 months to live, and she began the radical radiation treatment of the day, her only hope of surviving just a bit longer for the girl's sake. Elaine did not take this diagnosis lying down, and she fought each adversity head-on as it came along. The radiation, which she had for 6 weeks, for 20 minutes a day, had left her with many lifelong ill effects. She became a textbook case for doctors, specialists and surgeons. As her case was so unique, Elaine believed she was the oldest living Australian with ovarian cancer. During this period, her ability as a capable seamstress and pattern drafter became apparent, and Elaine's training as a milliner topped it off nicely, as patrons came from everywhere for ball gowns, wedding dresses, confirmation dresses and matching hats. She learned to drive in an old Chevy truck so she could take the girls to school and get about. Elaine opened a shop in Hackett Street, New Norfolk, to try and clear the house of all the sewing stock, but found it too hard to juggle all the customers, and doing the sewing herself as well. Elaine became wardrobe mistress for the Theatre Royal Light Opera Company, where Reg was involved in acting. She worked her fingers to the bone 4 to 6 weeks prior to each show, but she enjoyed the design work and sourcing the materials. She learned to do lots of reinventing and upcycling. She also had her own experience with Fred the Ghost at the Theatre Royal one night while working on costumes with her friend Thea Dixon. They needed some buttons and she had left them upstairs while working on costumes. She left them upstairs on the piano, so she went up, and as she reached out for the buttons, a strange presence and a light appeared, giving her the cold chills. So she raced downstairs and told Thea they were done for the night and that they would finish the buttons tomorrow, and bolted off home. But Elaine didn't believe in ghosts. It was just Fred, and everyone knew Fred. They moved to North Hobart. Elaine was approached to design and dress productions for the Sydney Theatre Group, but she chose not to uproot her family and declined the offer. She also did work for the Tasmanian Theatre Company and the Tasmanian Ballet. She took on Nutrimetics natural skincare products as a sideline. She quickly rose through the ranks to become a director and received her own car, which was updated every 2 years. This gave her the opportunity to travel afar, and Elaine had many adventures to far-off places for conventions, all this while managing the illness her ovarian cancer constantly caused her. So determined was she to overcome it. She died on the 2nd of June 2017 at the age of 86.